Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are 5 cards that I think should see more play in the Commander format. Just a few cards that I come across where I'm like, how come I don't see this more? It seems pretty darn good. So I'm going to start out at number 5 with Primeval Titan. This card seems fantastic, and I just never see it in a Commander game. Just kidding, of course, it's banned. I mean Primeval Herald. This guy is not quite as good as Primeval Titan, but he's still pretty good. Came out last year in Jumpstart. I chucked it in my Borborygmos and Fibblethip deck because I was specifically looking for creatures that had ETB and attack triggers, and I thought this was a great one. So, 3 and a green, Elf Scout 3/1 with Trample. When Primeval Herald enters the battlefield or attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. That seems pretty good. This is in currently 8,200 decks on EDH Rec. That's not bad. Now, let's compare this to Explosive Vegetation, which is also 4 mana and, of course, green, and searches your library for 2 basic land cards and puts them onto the battlefield tapped, currently in 58,000 decks. That's a lot more. In fact, I don't even know why anybody's still playing Explosive Vegetation. If you still are, Primeval Herald, in my opinion, is an upgrade for a bunch of reasons. Reason number 1, this is going to enter the battlefield, get you a basic land, and then the next turn you can attack, assuming your opponent doesn't waste a removal on it, which I seriously doubt they are going to. You go get another land. So now you've already gotten the 2 basic lands for your 4 mana, which Explosive Vegetation is, but you're also attacking, right? And if you can survive combat, which is a possibility, maybe you can go get a land the next turn. If you are in a deck, and there are quite a few out there that have a lot of haste enablers, you're giving your creatures haste all the time, this is immediate 4 mana. Get those 2 lands. So again, it's already better than Explosive Vegetation because I'm also getting in for damage as well. If I'm in a blink deck, now I can blink this creature, go get a land. If I'm in an elf deck, which of course there's a lot of elves out there, this is an elf, this is probably a lot better because now I'm going to get all those bumps off of my elf stuff. If you are in a deck where you're piling counters on your creatures, this is also a great advantage, right? Whenever you're making a deck, you want to build around your strategy. So I got to put ramp in my deck. I guess I could put an Explosive Vegetation in there, but since I'm putting +1/+1 counters on my creatures, I want my ramp to be in creature form, and this is a pretty good one because of course it has trample. So if I put 5 counters on this guy, now it's an 8/6 trampler. So not only is it getting me lands, it's also a menacing creature. I think this is a pretty darn decent ramp option, and for all you people out there still playing Explosive Vegetation, might want to give this consideration to replace it. Coming in at number 4 is an oldie but a goodie, Royal Assassin. 1 black human assassin, 1/1. Tap, destroy target tapped creature. That's it. Pretty cut and dry. This is a fantastic card in the Commander format and used to get played quite a bit when I first started playing, and it was really fallen off. Now, there are obviously certain scenarios where this can be good. I guess maybe human or assassin tribal. I guess there are actually some assassin tribal decks out there now, so this could be a good fit because it is an assassin. If you are in a tapping, untapping theme, this could be good, right? Because of course it has a tap ability. Again, if I'm giving my creatures haste, could be extra good because I can use it right away, right? There's a lot of scenarios where this can be extra good, but this is just a really good card in a Commander game all around. And again, maybe it's one of those situations where there's just so much stuff we got to cram into our decks, we can't find room for this, right? I mean, I don't have this in any decks, and I would love to find room for it if I could because it's such a great card. This card reads, don't attack me. That's why I think this card is so fantastic. This is essentially a black Pillow Fort card. If you are in a black deck that maybe doesn't have white, because white is really good at Pillow Fort. If you're outside of white and you want to do the Pillow Fort theme in black, Royal Assassin is a great option for you because the card essentially reads, if you attack me with your creature that doesn't have vigilance, I'm going to kill it. So take that into consideration when evaluating this card. I mean, there's always going to be tapped creatures around. There's never going to be a situation where you're not going to have a tapped creature that you can destroy with this, but in particular, in the Pillow Fort strategy where I just don't want anyone attacking me, this could be a great card for that. Coming in at number 3, a card that I am just baffled that it is not in more decks. Stag Beetle, 3 green insect. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of other creatures on the battlefield. Why is this card only in 1,300 decks? Someone please explain. First of all, okay, again, just getting to the very specific archetypes. This is an insect. So any insect deck, like that Grist or that Zast deck, that is going to be doing insect tribal already, it should be in all of those. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Also, a +1/+1 counter theme. If you're in any theme that's doing the +1/+1 counters in green, which of course there's a ton of those, this guy comes with all the counters already on him, so he's probably going to fit in that theme as well. But even outside of that, this is just a phenomenal creature in a commander game. X +1/+1 counters where X is the number of other creatures in play. So if there's 6 other creatures on the board entirely, yours and your opponent's included, this guy's a 6/6. That's not bad, but of course, there's always the situation where there's 20 creatures on the battlefield. Again, yours and your opponent's included. So this guy's now a 20/20 for 5 mana. That seems pretty good. Now, I guess it's a vanilla creature, okay. Still, a 20/20 creature for 5 mana is pretty good. If you get in a situation where you have like a power toughness matters, like maybe my Shanna deck, and in fact, I'm starting to wonder if maybe I should put this in my Shanna deck because I have cards like Greater Good where I can sacrifice this guy, draw a ton of cards. So maybe I should give it consideration there. Yargle and Multani is likely what you're going to be doing in that deck, where it is a powers matter, right? Because of course your commander is an 18 power. So having that 5 mana vanilla creature that has a giant power toughness might fit nicely in there as well. It's just a really huge creature for not a lot of mana. I'm just really surprised. 1300 decks, that's essentially nothing. I can't believe this card's not in more decks. Seems pretty good. Moving on to Psychic Possession. And again, another card that I saw from time to time back in the day in the commander format and never see it anymore. And currently in about 2,800 decks on EDHREC, which again is essentially not any at all. I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this card right now and have probably never even seen it before. Originally all the way back from Guild Pact, and it's a very, very unique card. 2 blue enchantment aura. So this is an aura, keep that in mind. Enchant opponent. Now, I will point out this is not a curse. It does do what curses usually do. It is not a curse though, but it is an aura that will enchant an opponent. So it's targeting an opponent. That can be relevant. Skip your draw step. That's not great. However, when enchanted opponent draws a card, you may draw a card. First of all, I will just point out the decks where I believe this is an auto include, and there's no reason you should ever not play it. For example, a Damia Sage of Stone deck. You're already skipping your draw step, so there's zero downside to this card. I play this, I'm already skipping my draw step. Not only do I fill my hand with my Damia, but I also get to draw every time that target opponent draws. Again, Taigam Sidisi's hand. There is a blue commander that is already skipping your draw step. Auto include in there. Why would you not put this in that deck? Because the downside is null and void. You're already skipping your draw step, so it's just extra draw. If you're in a more huggy theme, like say Quain Itinerant Meddler, it seems like a really great fit because you're already drawing extra cards anyway, but you're also getting your opponents to draw extra cards, right? So skipping your draw step isn't as much of a downside, but also you're making your opponents draw cards, so now you're getting more of an advantage off of your opponents doing that. And again, that's where the other place where I would auto include this is in any deck, like say the new Heliod, where you want your opponents to draw cards. Your spells cost 1 less to cast for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. So it is likely you're going to be forcing your opponents to draw cards lots, so you just pick that guy. So whenever my opponent's drawing a bunch of cards, I'm going to get to draw as well. This is any card draw at all. If my opponent has a Rhystic Study in play, every time they draw off of their Rhystic Study, I will get to draw as well, right? That's where I think outside of these specific archetypes or the specific commanders, this is a great card that you could put in any deck because I'm sitting down at a table, I see someone's playing a, I don't know, Tatyova. There's a commander that draws a lot of cards. I cast this targeting that person because I know they're going to draw a ton of cards, so I will as well. Playing a Korvold, no problem. You get my Psychic Possession, so I will get a card draw every time you do so. Worst case scenario here is that player draws a card on their draw step and you get to as well, right? So you're not really out anything. It seems bad, that phrase, skip your draw step, I guess is really scary for people. But the worst case scenario here is I skip my draw and then immediately on my opponent's next turn, I get to draw a card. So you're already up a card, right? As soon as you play this, you're up a card because you've drawn your card for your turn already. And as soon as you play this, the next guy, whoever you targeted with it, you get to draw on their turn as well. So there really is not any downside at all here. And the upside potentially is massive. Can't believe this card isn't played more. And I'm going to end off with one of the most unique cards in the entire format, Pan Glacial Worm. And again, only in 3,700 decks on EDHREC. That's hardly anything for a card that I think could go in a ton of decks. And this one is a lot more specific. Again, you could put this in any deck, sure, but I'm going to go over first the decks that it specifically goes in. One of the most unique abilities ever printed on a card. 5 green, worm, 9/5 with trample. So you got a 9/5 trampler here. That's no joke. Could be nice to help you close out the game. While you're searching your library, you may cast Pan Glacial Worm from your library. Holy cow, is that ever a weird, unique ability. And the way this works is actually entirely unique. This, as far as I know, is the only card that actually interrupts the resolution of a spell, if you know what I mean. Typically, whenever you cast a spell, if you have some card with a whole bunch of text on it, all that stuff resolves before anything else goes on the stack, before anyone can do anything. Pan Glacial Worm is the exception. If I cast a Rampant Growth, what's going to happen is the Rampant Growth goes on the stack. As it's resolving, I am now searching my library, and before I get a land and put it into play, I'll cast my Pan Glacial Worm, of course at instant speed, because I don't have to follow normal restrictions here with casting time. My Pan Glacial Worm will go onto the stack, then I will finish getting the land, then my Pan Glacial Worm will resolve and go into play. I think that's how it works. It's a really, really complex scenario, but really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whenever you search your library, you can cast this guy from your library. That's great value, right? In any deck where you're just searching on the regular, like, I don't know, any green deck that has ramp in it, later in a game, like I'm on turn 10, I grab a Rampant Growth off the top. That's not very good on turn 10, but now I can cast my Rampant Growth and go get a 9/5 creature and put it directly into play. That's pretty good value, right? I mean, 7 mana is a lot, but it's a giant creature that I get to throw onto the battlefield when I desperately need one later in a game. In particular, though, again, the commanders where I just think this is an auto include, of course, is any commander where you're just searching your library repeatedly. There are a bunch. A Karametra, God of Harvest, right? There's a commander where you are repeatedly searching your library. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So now, again, on turn 10, I draw whatever lame creature off the top that's not really going to help me. Now when I cast it, I'm searching my library, so I get to go get that Pan Glacial Worm. Kodama of the West Tree, one of the most underrated commanders in the entire format, I think. There's a commander that is repeatedly searching your library, right? It's searching for a land again, so easy slot into that deck. I recently made an Eleanor Gardner deck from Lord of the Rings. At the beginning of your end step, if you sacrificed a food this turn, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card into the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. I threw this in there because my commander has a search my library trigger that later in a game, I don't really care so much about getting a land and putting it on the battlefield tapped, but having the option to get that giant 9/5 trampler out of my library could be really valuable to me. I, in fact, built an entire deck around this card, Pan Glacial Worm, in the 99, just because I thought it was such an interesting card that you could easily build the deck around. If you have a deck at all that's doing a lot of searching, again, any green deck is probably doing it a lot. Drawing that Rampant Growth off the top of your library late in the game isn't that great. It gets a lot better if you have a Pan Glacial Worm, but again, if you have any of those commanders that gets to search libraries repeatedly, this guy really gets good because I'm searching my library anyway. Why not cast this guy while I'm searching? I think it's a super neat card and also a really surprising moment in a commander game that a lot of people won't expect. That is it. That is all for today, though. 5 more cards that I think should see more play in the commander format. And if you are thinking of purchasing any of these cards, I have a TCG Player link. It is in the description below. Feel free to give it a click. It helps support the channel. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.